Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today I'm going to discuss what should you do with your money. And this maybe is a little bit of a weird question for some people, but I've been talking to some people lately, and I've often over the last maybe a year or two had a thought that revolves around this, which I'll talk about in a second. But it's the question of, okay, hey, I made a bunch of money. What do I do? How do I decide how much to spend, how much to invest, what to do with it? Especially if you're new to having a reasonable sum of money, right? Whatever that number happens to be for you. For some people, that's, a few million. Some people, it's tens of millions, whatever, right? What do you do? And so I'm going to share some thoughts on how I would think about it. And of course, it's a values-based thing. So this is, largely opinion-driven, but hopefully it will give you a little bit of a sense of some ideas on how to navigate this. So let's dive in. Before we do that, if you haven't already, please smash the subscribe button, nail the notification bell, hit that little all button so you don't miss out on any of the videos. And if you'd like help figuring out, what residencies programs to get, what citizenship programs to get, how to optimize your tax, how to protect your assets, help with doing any of those things, actually getting the citizenship or the residency, etc. We can help you with all those things. Please reach out to me. You can book a call, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below, or send a message to our websites, offshorecitizen.net and offshorecapitalist.com. Okay, so I've been saying this thing for a little while now, which is wealth is wasted on the wealthy. And I think this is quite true. I think that a lot of people have issues when they make money with doing cool stuff with it. And I think this is a real tragedy. I think this is really, really bad, actually, for society, for the individual, etc. And I guess it doesn't just apply to wealthy people. I remember my grandmother, and my grandmother grew up in the Great Depression. My grandmother was very poor. To give some idea, my mom and she, my dad, or my grandpa, my mom's dad, died when my mom was 14, and it was very not good. They had cardboard boxes for furniture, so very not well off. And my grandmother was a saver because of this, right? Great, wonderful, frugal habits, good with her money, etc. Well, by the time she was towards the end of her life, she had, a reasonable amount of money to take care of herself. There was no reason that she was going to go broke, but she still lived like she was going to be broke, right? She was obsessive about things like, she would wash the mold off the cheese rather than, just cutting off a piece of cheese and throwing it away because she didn't want to waste. She had been raised with this philosophy of waste not, want not. And there's something to be said for that, right? There's something to be said for being a good steward of resources. But then there's the other side about being good steward of resources, which is if your resources are sitting there doing nothing, then, it's not so great. Now, in her case, she had her particular goals, and, everybody's got their goals. This being said, I think, in my opinion, as we become more financially successful, we have a certain stewardship, a certain obligation that goes along with that to do things. And there's been a lot of studies you can go and check out. I've read some that some investor friends have sent me over the years about how there's a psychological barrier for people around spending money if you've worked on making money. Right? I was literally just having a conversation with a business partner and his girlfriend a couple days ago, and she was commenting just on, having a goal that was, a relatively modest goal, but getting there and then not being able to spend down below it, right? Just psychologically, can't do that. And the thing is, that's fine if you have kind of smaller amounts of money, right? Because you want a safety cushion, and there's some logic to that. I think in general, the advice that I typically give people when you start making money is start off by paying off your debt and building a reserve fund, right? These two things strike me as the most basic things to do. Then you can start worrying about investing in various different ways. And I think you should probably always have that, because the stress and challenges that come with, being broke are certainly not worth it. I have a business partner from years ago who had been very successful in real estate in a very short period of time and then lost it all. And he was a very unusual individual. But he was lots about, what he learned along the way, etc. And I remember talking to him about it afterwards. And even he commented, he said, it took him a long time to admit that he wished he hadn't done the deal that basically collapsed his portfolio. Because he said, he was basically forced into a 5-year retirement. And the difference is, this way he did it with, he's he could have taken the 5-year retirement anyway, but he would have done it with, $5 million or whatever in his back pocket, which would have been much better than the situation that he was in. So anyway, that's something to think about as you go forward. I think more interesting thing, though, is just to focus on, again, like, we need more people in the world who do cool stuff with their money. There's people who make money, and I think that what happens, a business partner of mine in another company describes it as your income grows exponentially, but your spending grows linear, grows not exponentially, right? And so the consequence is you end up with this gap, and it's like, what's the point of that gap? Now, up to a certain stage, it makes sense that, you're building a cushion, right? Because theoretically, you're making a lot now, but in the future, you're not going to make, and so you're going to draw that down over time, and you want to cover it off. There's some reasonableness to this. But then there's a point where the return on investment on your assets is going to exceed your income or your expenses for the rest of your life. And then what are you doing, right? You need to go and to take advantage of some things. So in my opinion, what you should start by doing is taking a portion with a margin of safety and setting that aside. That's your, if everything goes wrong, I'm okay. I'm always okay. I never want to have to rebuild from zero, because rebuilding from zero really sucks, right? After that, I think what you want to do is you want to start paying attention to what things are important to you. And you can ask about, what is this number? We've talked in a previous video, I talked about the 4% rule. 4% rule is a probably reasonable base starting point, right? If basically, you could do the math there. Basically, that's if your total asset base of savings is 25 times your cost of living, then you're probably good, right? Now, of course, if your cost of living increases a lot, then there's some compensation that you have to do there to rejig it. But generally speaking, that's a good rule of thumb to take into account. Then beyond that, what's important to you? What are the things that matter? I feel as though what I've seen in the world a lot is you have a lot of people who just accumulate and just sit on things. And what's the point in sitting on them? Money is a lever for for bringing your values to life into the world. Nobody else is ever going to do as good a job as that as you, because nobody else is going to perfectly share your values. So I tend to be kind of against inheritance. Obviously, some people are, that's what they want to do, is they want to save money and pass it on to the next generation. I'm kind of beyond a certain point, I understand, giving them a basic level, but beyond that point, I'm not really so sure that that's the wisest thing to do. Anyway, you kind of have to think, you still have time, skills, and now you have financial resources. And there's a lot that you can do with that. There's so many people who they retire, and maybe they're they kind of become casual. It's well, you spent years building a set of skills and relationships that empower you to do things in the world that you couldn't otherwise do, right? That other people can't do. You kind of have a obligation to go and do something with that, to make the most of it, to grab it. And so, whether that is you're going to go out and you're going to, build something, invent something, help some people, create something, whatever it is, right? There's lots of different ways. But I think it really pays to spend some time, first of all, seeing the world, seeing different influences, immersing yourself in some different areas of life, indulging your passions and your hobbies and your interests, right? If you always thought, hey, it would be really cool to go to Seychelles and stay in 4 Seasons and spend, 2,000 euros a night on a suite, do it. Go and actually start to indulge that and feel what are the things that you can do. Obviously, you're not going to, the amount of consumption that you can have, unless you get really crazy about it, ceiling's pretty fast, right? And so then what? Maybe you should hire some developers, go and develop some project. Maybe you should go and, build something really cool. Maybe you have some idea for how virtually anything can be done better. One of the big inspirations for me in my life often is I see something and I think that could be done better. So for example, I'm sitting in a hotel room right now. One of the things that I think I'd like to do at some point in time is create a hotel. Why would I like to do this? Well, because I travel a lot, and I can tell you the ergonomics in hotels suck, okay? You don't have, first of all, you don't have monitors in general, so I'd probably have an elevated multi-monitor setup so that you have that. You have a good chair that you could sit in. You have, good ergonomics. Maybe you have a sitting, standing desk. I would be super interested in staying in hotels that are designed for people like me who are traveling and would like good ergonomics. I don't know any place that this is. Somebody could do that via a chain of Airbnbs too, right? Another example, very, very cool. And there's lots of other simple examples. I talked to somebody, fortunately, the other day who owns a bunch of Airbnbs, and he had some cool ideas for including collaborative workspaces in there, and lots of these different pieces. So whatever it is, I'm just coming up with random ideas. Maybe it's some sort of art, right? Maybe you think, hey, one of the things I really appreciated was I was listening to Charles Hoskinson talk in a Lex Friedman interview, and he has a background in mathematics. He's like, hey, now that I have money, I got these mathematicians together who normally, it's really hard for them to do something, and gave them $20 million to go and do some cool math. Great, like maybe research, maybe something to do with health. But diving in and taking advantage of whatever you can do with that, I think is really, really important. And so I hope that, people are inspired by the video and, go and start indulging in not wasting the wealth that you accumulate, because I think it's really tough. There was a billionaire recently who had a goal to spend all of his money down, and he succeeded. And so there's some big news article about that. Pretty cool, like, again, why are you dying with billions of dollars? Warren Buffett and Bill Gates did the giving pledge, and there were some people who were, basically the pledge is you're going to give away half of your net worth, and it's only for people over $1 billion. And Warren Buffett said some people were turning them down, and he said, I should write a book, How to Survive on $500 million. Like, it's kind of this crazy concept. So anyway, I hope that helps. I hope it's some idea. I would love to hear your comments on this topic. Like, what do you think? Do you think that I'm out to lunch? Great, tell me. Do you think that, hey, this is indeed a problem in society and we should, be doing more? What are you planning on doing? Would love to hear. So look forward to hearing what you have to say in the comments, and I'm going to look seeing you guys on the next video.